Recording in progress.
All right, welcome to the Village of Cottage Grove Plan Commission on Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. This is a hybrid meeting occurring virtually online with the Zoom link at the top of the agenda and in person at Village Hall. It's also streamed on our YouTube channel. It is 6:31, so I'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted, so we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to move on to number 4, public appearances, public's opportunity to speak. We'll start with people in the room with a wish to speak form or just here and are present at the meeting, and then move to any individuals online who'd like to speak. We just ask that you state your name, address, and limit your comment to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak? Is there anyone online that would like to speak? You can hover over the react button and use the raise hand feature. Right. Moving on, number 5, discuss and consider the minutes from the Plan Commission meeting from April 8th, 2026. Those minutes are linked in the agenda.
Motion to approve as presented.
And a second.
Motion by Alex, second by Heidi. Any comments or concerns on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Moving on to discuss and consider a request from Bryn Mawr Presbyterian Church, consolidating 6 parcels into 2 parcels. And there's a couple of attachments, the CSM, and then also a staff report, and I'll let Aaron kind of run us through that, and we do have Dave here.
Yeah, so basically the church is looking to consolidate their parcels. There's 6 or 7 different parcels there. They're looking to combine them into 2. One would have the church and parking lot. The other has a current home on it that they may keep or may tear down or may do something different with. But that's not an immediate concern right now. It's just the CSM to combine the parcels. We'd recommend approving that. There is one slight complication that one of the parcels is actually zoned planned industrial because I think it started as a corner of the business park. So we can't combine that with residential parcels because the parcel can only have one kind of zoning. So they will have to join us again next month to do the rezoning, but we can condition the CSM approval on taking effect when that zoning is straightened out. I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
Not really, not there's questions.
Okay.
Comments or questions from the board? Go ahead, Alex.
Is there any, oh, hey, Aaron, way over there. Is there any implications for utilities? A lot of times we go from 0 lot line to splits and combining. Is there a utility implication?
Shouldn't be. There should be utilities on each of the separate lots now already. So.
And I would move approval of the request from Bryn Mawr of the CSM to consolidate the existing lots as presented with staff conditions.
Second.
Motion by Heidi, second by, we'll give it to Don. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so we have now number 7, discuss and consider the annexation petition from Lindstrom Acres with a variety of attachments. And I think Steve might be online to be able to him. Okay. Otherwise, Aaron.
Cindy, the developer's on, it's just not Steve.
Oh, sorry. Aaron, I'll let you run us through
Yeah,
this.
so it's Ryan and Brian are online. I don't know if they would like to say anything, otherwise we can.
We're unmuting.
Okay, I don't know, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, thank you. This is Brian with Newman Development. Thank you. This annexation petition is submitted on behalf of the owners, unanimous petition for annexation. So we brought in the map that's attached for discussion earlier because we would like to propose this as a two-step annexation, if you will. This first large parcel will come into the village, and you'll see subsequent applications for rezoning preliminary plat for a residential for sale neighborhood. So, and then just as a general update, the reason for the two-step annexation, we have been working with the neighbor that's kind of surrounded, and happy to report that their attorney has sent over a final agreement, which we've signed. So all things look clear from that perspective.
Aaron, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Not really. We'd recommend approval. We can approve it here at the Plan Commission, but just so everyone's aware, when it goes to the village board, they can't consider it until we get a letter from the Department of Administration weighing in on their review of the annexation, but we can't look at it here. I've also had conversations with the adjacent owners, and I think their concerns are met. I know you guys had some concerns about the possibility of the right-of-way expanding, which it's not. And I know Sarah Steele to the south, there's a 20-foot strip along the bottom edge. She just wanted to make sure that it wasn't included, which it's not. So yeah, we would recommend approval.
Go ahead.
I got confused. So they talked about two parts. Are we doing both parts? Recommending approval for both parts, or this is a part of 100 acres, there's another part later? I got lost.
Right. So there's a residential parcel kind of in the middle of the area that's not part of it, and then another little section adjacent to that that's not coming in.
So this is the majority of it. This is the base. This is the core, but there's going to be a couple little infills as that. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yep.
Does anyone else have comments or questions on this one?
There was no staff recommendations, right? There's no letter attached. I just want to make sure there's nothing we're missing. Okay. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of item number 7 on our agenda for the annexation petition from Landstrom Acres LLC for the annexation of 108.482 acres with the parcels that are listed in the agenda.
And I'll second.
All right, motion by Alex, second by Haiti. Any other discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, so at this time, we'll open 6:40, a public hearing, and the public's opportunity to provide input regarding potential amendments to Chapter 274 of the subdivision ordinance. There's a PDF linked in the agenda. Also invite Trustee Stoa up to the front if he'd like to give comments moving forward. Oh, wait, okay, never mind. Not inviting Trustee Stoa up to the front on this one. We'll let Aaron run through this item just during the open hearing.
You're always welcome. So these are items that we looked at late last year, kind of after our field trip that we took out to Grandview Commons. The one part that was previously part of this that I'm leaving out, at least at this time, is the alleys. I think we'd like to kind of look at dimensions and things like that with the fire department a little bit more. But the other sections related to street widths, this is a reminder, we're looking at it in terms of the components that make up the street, the width of the driving lane, the width of the parking lane, width of the bike lane, as opposed to an overall width, like how it's handled in the ordinance now. Changing the minimum sidewalk width from 4 feet to 5. 5 has been kind of the common practice, but we just like to have that codified. Likewise, multi-use paths, just that the board has the ability to ask for a multi-use path in lieu of a sidewalk. That's also kind of been in practice, but not necessarily part of the ordinance. Introducing minimum curb radii at intersections. Having smaller curb radii means you have a shorter crossing distance for pedestrians. It also makes it harder to go speeding around the corner, so it's a little bit safer for motorists as well. And then the building setback section was just kind of redundant because that's already handled by the zoning ordinance. We just want to address that a little more clearly. So we'd recommend approval of those items.
There's no one here from the public. Is there anyone online that would like to give comments during the public hearing? All right. Hearing none, it's 6:42, so I'll close the public hearing. We'll move on to number 9, discuss and consider potential amendments to Chapter 274. So open it up to discussion from the board, from the commission.
I just want to thank Aaron for arranging the field trip tour so we can see some of these things actually in person, so they don't seem quite as, I don't know, hard to visualize just by reading. So I think that that was really helpful exercise for us to understand what we're looking to do.
It's getting warmer, maybe we'll do another one.
I guess page 4 at the bottom, nothing specific, but it's about the curb. You have a section at E, I think. Curb radii shall not exceed 20 feet with 15 feet preferred, words. Arterial street shall not exceed 25 feet. Do we need to, should we also specify a minimum? Like if you're gonna do a max, do we want a high and a low to guardrail, to prevent any questions or any future issues? I don't know what the number is. I'm just, if we're gonna state a maximum, do we want to ensure somebody cuts the corner too tight or anything like that? I don't know what you've seen in language around that.
It's usually been handled as a maximum. Yeah, I mean, we would have the leeway to kind of ask for what we want. It's just as long as they're not exceeding this.
Any other comments or questions on the subdivision ordinance changes?
And I would move approval of the amendments to Chapter 274 subdivision ordinance as presented.
Second.
Heidi, second by Jared. Any other comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right. Now is it time for inviting Trustee Stoll up? I jumped the gun. All of the edits I feel come from you. All right, we've got discuss and consider directing staff to review and a draft amended language for purpose statements for multiple things.
So thank you for having me. The state legislature passed and the governor signed late last year Wisconsin Act 68, which updated the zoning purpose statements to sort of modify some of the reasons for having a zoning code. And it took out some language like preventing overcrowding in land and lessening congestion in the streets and replaced it with similar but a little bit different language. And this is just to reflect the changes in state law.
Comments or questions for Trustee Stoll? Otherwise, Aaron, what do you have to add?
So we'd be looking for direction for me to draft this up and bring it back. We wouldn't be, approving it in a final format today, but we'd have to do the public hearing for amending zoning, just like we did for the last item. But it does make sense to do all this. I agree with it.
Do you need a motion for that, or is it just a direction to staff? I mean, it says discuss and consider, but it's not like we're,
Defer to Larry on that one.
Yeah, you can make the motion, you're just directing, the motion is just to direct staff to
Yeah.
proceed.
I'll make a motion to direct staff to review and draft amended language in the, as listed in item 10 of our agenda.
And I'll
All
second.
right, motion by Alex, second by Heidi.
And
Any
thanks.
other?
I just want to thank Chris for bringing this over to us.
Thanks, Chris. All right. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, number 11 is an overview of the 2025 Wisconsin Act 173, Truth in Planning Law, and 235.
Yeah, some more statutory changes that affect what we're doing here at the Plan Commission. First one, Act 173, it's being called the Truth in Planning Law. Basically, it requires the land use element of a comprehensive plan to specifically describe phasing and density of future residential development. And when a developer comes forward requesting zoning for a project that is consistent with that density and phasing that you have in your plan, you're now obligated to approve that with various exceptions that related to just if the village would be unable to supply utilities or things like that. I think there's some confusion about this, that it just applies to everything, but it's really just residential development. The other act is Act 235. This one creates a new kind of tax increment district called an RTID, or Residential Tax Increment District. It's intended to promote workforce housing. Any housing that is created in one of these TIDs has to meet specific requirements. Specifically, it has to be owner-occupied, single-family or duplex. Lot sizes cannot exceed 7,500 square feet for a single family, or 12,500 for a duplex. The maximum width is 70 feet for a single family, or 80 feet for a duplex. 10-foot setbacks maximum, and then a single-story unit cannot exceed 1,500 square feet, and a two-story structure cannot exceed 2,000. Just to put that in context, at all of those kind of maximum dimensions that would fit within our SR6 single-family residential zoning, which has a maximum of 7,500. So anything, above this would not work, but or anything below, if someone came in with a 7,000 square foot lot, that would work for the TID, but not for our SR6 zoning. So I think one thing to consider going forward is potentially either adjusting that SR6 district or potentially creating another one that would give a little more flexibility within the rules of the TID. And as we go through the comprehensive planning process, which will be starting here shortly, I think identifying areas through the land use plan there to identify places where this kind of TID could be utilized in the village would be something to look at too. The TIDs that exist now, there's a rule called the 12% rule. It says you can't create a new TID or adjust an existing TID if more than 12% of your assessed or equalized value is within TIF districts. We're over that basically because of Amazon, but the RTIDs are not part of that equation. They have their own 3% rule that works similar, but it's not combined with the other TIDs. I think that covers it, unless Larry, you had anything else that you wanted to point out?
No, I think that it's something that these two are acts that a lot of communities are going to be wrestling with, but it's timed really well right now in Cottage Grove with the planning that's going on. That's already been kicked, process has already begun to get that started. So it's a real challenge, and that part of it, there will be a lot of questions that Aaron will pose along the way about, to what extent the planning now, comp plans never had any force of law. And, you know, this new statute says they don't, but they do. In that, you know, you need to recognize that the sort of the legislative authority in that step is sort of allocated to that plan at this point for following the effective date of this in the 1st of 2028. So there will be more to discuss in terms of policy choices than normal with a comp plan change.
Comments or questions from the commission? I guess when it comes to residential TIDs, Aaron, how do you envision that working within the development process? Is this something that a developer would come to us and ask us to create a TID? Do we have, or are we going to, you know, look at our future land use and where we would like to see it?
It could be done either way. You know, the current types of TIDs work either way. We tend to do them in advance in places where we want development, but certainly there are cases in other places where a developer will come forward with, you know, this is a site and can you create a TID to help us?
Assuming that has to happen very early on in the process, like it can't, or
I mean,
are there restrictions on?
I'm assuming the developer would want to know kind of what they're getting out of it and putting that into the math of whether the development's feasible or not. So yeah, I think they would need to know fairly early on.
Yeah, and to do, to reimburse costs associated with a project, you have to have the TID created prior to incurring those costs. So the way that, as you all probably know, the way TIDs work is you've got a base value, and we can use the increment from the growth in the assessed value or equalized value to create incentives. So that has to be done before that work happens. But TIDs can also be created relatively quickly, 60 to 90 days.
I should also point out, they can't just use the money for anything. It really is directed towards providing utilities for the housing. So I think neighborhoods where that might be a particular challenge for one reason or another is where this could be particularly useful.
How does it work for multifamily or mixed use? So if you were to have commercial, you know, on the bottom, is that
Yeah,
applicable?
so that wouldn't be an R TID because this
Okay.
has to be the owner-occupied single family or duplex. But there is a mixed-use TID that already exists that
Okay.
we could use for that.
Other comments or questions?
I guess I just had one follow-up. I think could be a very useful thing because we hear that development costs a lot of money to put all the infrastructure in, and that goes directly to the cost of housing. So, you know, if we can help reduce those barriers, we can help reduce the cost for first-time home buyers, or, you know, the housing is a lot in general. So anything we can do to help that infrastructure offset, I think that's helpful legislation that came through. So thanks for the update on it.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll move on to number 12, which is an update on data centers. So there's a memo in your packet. I serve on the Dane County Advisory Committee on Data Centers. And we've been working, we started I think in February, we've been working once a month to kind of tackle a whole bunch of different topics, which I have listed on page 1 there. We actually envision our work taking probably more than a year. I think we're gonna probably extend it. But the idea is that we'll have guidelines for municipalities when evaluating data center projects, because I'm sure you've all seen in the news that these are kind of very large scale, high utility burden developments that can have really big economic impacts, but also have a lot of other considerations that should be taken into account. And so I guess because there is so much information and there aren't really good guidelines, or there's not state guidelines, and Dane County is still kind of wrestling with this. Not that we have anything on the table right now, but I think that kind of just making sure we have a pause in Cottage Grove kind of sets us up for some success And if there were to be a proposal, we would know exactly how to go about evaluating that. And so that's basically what my memo says.
I did kind of scan through some of the, you had a bunch of presentations at the end. I went through, I scanned through a bunch of them, and a lot of them are very good. Some of them, they give you the actual facts. There's a lot of blanket statements about the data centers that, you got to look at what specifically they are. But one of the things was when we had, any kind of thing that may be controversial or whatever, and they talk about it, is making sure that you have a zoning for that. Some of them Virginia ones, they were putting them in like planned industrial. So we almost need to have it, and we've done this with some other controversial businesses where we put them in like an M1 or a heavy industrial type zoning. So we can't just say we don't want them. We have to have or accommodate zoning for it. We don't necessarily have to have an abundance of that zoning, but we do need to have it. And so that's something we should think about, is that, okay, it has to be in this zoning, that it can't be in, like in Virginia where they were able to put it in a lighter industrial zoning, and then that's where some of the problems and issues have came
Yeah,
up.
we had the person who worked on all the data centers in Virginia talk to us yesterday, and gave us, his story on all of those data centers and all of the regulations and the work that he has done in Virginia and all of that. But yeah, they're industrial, like he suggested industrial zoning
Yeah.
for sure. But there's also like a lot of other considerations.
And Larry left a little too early, but I was
Larry has
just
a
curious.
conflict.
I was just curious on, on some of the stuff, as far as what type of cooling they're gonna use and all that. I don't know what we can and cannot regulate, or if that has to come from the state or the county or whatever. Because it's gonna depend upon water use versus electric use.
And if
you know.
if you have a closed loop system, then you're gonna be primarily driven by electrical use. And then and you also have there's a lot of generators that are involved, and so that's high noise burden, and it's industrial, so there's light at night all the time, and just a lot of different things. But I think the utility impact is probably the biggest that people are most concerned about right off the bat.
I'm thinking the generators would mainly be emergency use, but they do run them to make sure they run, so
Every
they
day.
frequently run them.
Yes.
And
And there's
then-
some data centers, we talked yesterday about how they have it depends on the building too. So there's some data centers that have a constant hum, and it might just be a 40 decibel hum, but it's pretty consistent. And if it goes right up next to a residential, and it's low frequency, so then the wavelength travels further and that kind of stuff. So
I know the state has a data center, obviously not ginormous, but, right along the interstate and Femrite. So that's a big state data center, and I know they have a cooling tower, but I don't think it's not that big where it's a big impact on anything. But I do know they did feed it. They've fed it multiple ways electrically, so there's some backup as far as how that is all powered and everything. So yeah, there's a lot of questions to be answered, and it'd be nice to see some guidelines
Yeah.
from someone.
I think even just defining, our definition, like what a data center is, because there's all different categories of data centers. So, we're kind of focused on like the hyperscale, really large ones, but there's, ones that might come along like adjacent to a business because that business might use it. And maybe that's something that we would want to permit in the future.
Certainly the larger ones wouldn't fit in our current zoning anyway, so they would apply for a plan unit, a PUD zoning, which we would have a lot of discretion on because they're going to be requesting various variances to our code. So we're somewhat protected from that standpoint as far as not being bound to move forward with something that if the village didn't want to. Having said that, it'll be helpful going through the comp plan process to identify, if there are areas where it theoretically could work. And then just so you guys all know, and Cindy mentioned it, Stafford has a conflict on this topic. So we've engaged we have another counsel that we use for some other things that's gonna help us out possibly pursuing this if the board gives direction to pursue a potential moratorium or something like that while we work through these dynamics. So
I think, we hear a lot, at least the last handful of months too, about like community character. And if you do, and it's something we're starting to focus on a little bit in the group too, is that if you do put something, a data center in, that takes the place of, a different type of business or development that could go in there, and is there a better fit? And how does a data center like really fit in the community? And something I'm interested in is what happened. I mean, technology is rapidly changing, and you even saw how data centers have changed, their chips and the cooling systems, and how do you decommission a data center, and what does it become when that technology becomes obsolete? So there's a lot of questions. We mostly just have a lot of questions the whole time, and then people give presentations, then we have more questions. But hopefully in the next year we have, a handbook or guidelines or something for municipalities to use.
On that decommissioning, I mean, I don't know what they can do. I know, like, with the gravel pit, they have state laws on putting that back to a certain level. I know a lot of airport leased land has verbiage in the event that structures are abandoned or their leases are up, where they're, you have to remove buildings or decommission them. It's rarely done, but, and I don't know on solar and wind stuff, if they have decommissioning rules or not, because eventually that's gonna be a problem.
Right. All right. Other comments?
I think it makes a lot of sense, given we're working on the comp plan. We have this Dane County committee that's meeting to help establish guidelines. Of course, we're not saying no forever, but we need to figure out what requirements we would need to have in place to have something go through that would impact that many different areas. So I think it makes sense to have our council draft something for us.
And I'm going in with what's the best way to bring a data center in? And if there is no best way, what's the best way to say no to? So next steps for this, we're going to talk about it at the village board, and the village board can give direction for a legal review, and then there'd be a public hearing process and eventually an adoption of the resolution for a moratorium.
For this, the public hearing needs a 30 days notice prior, so this will take a little bit of time because the board will have to discuss it, and then we'll have to work through things with the attorney, but yeah.
This summer probably, if the board approves.
Thanks for bringing this forward, and thanks for serving on the Dane County Committee too.
No problem. It's been interesting. All right, future agenda items.
Got a few things. Newman is shooting for the June meeting to come back with their preliminary plat and zoning for the land they just annexed. Bryn Mawr Church will be back for their zoning, as we discussed. We have a MG high school student that wants to come in and talk about bird safety and things you can do with glazing to help protect birds. I think Madison has a new ordinance about that, so she wants to talk to us about that. And then we are in the process of getting a contract finalized for the comp plan update, so we'll have more information on that. But you guys are going to be the committee that helps us out with that, so should be fun.
Thanks. Also, something to consider. I'm reflecting on number 10. Where there's a potential update, asking staff to look at this updated because of state statute changes. So, do we need a gap analysis of all the changes that we're behind on? Because we're always behind. It's just the fact of life. The ordinance committee doesn't exist anymore and shouldn't exist anymore. I was on that. It was a waste of time. It wasn't a waste of time. It was not valuable money spent. So we move forward on that one. I don't know if, when it gets to the board, I don't know if that's a priority for staff. I mean, so there's going to be a, so we approved it as an ordinance. There's the not an emotional decision, but you get to make a choice. Whether you actually direct staff to spend time on that. So I don't know if we do we need a full comprehensive gap analysis? Is this the most important thing for staff to work on right now? The data center thing sounds important. And then the other thing too is there any teeth to not being compliant? Like, we get 2 years to get compliant. I was kind of going through the statute in the state it's all loose because there's always something later. Even in our ordinances, if you fail to follow this ordinance, there's something way down here at the bottom that we pull up front. So from how we want to run things, we shouldn't be just piecemealing necessarily the hot topic that may be important to an individual or a small group. We want to make sure it complies with everything that's going on. So just something to think about at the board level, or maybe it'll be a topic we talk about here about how to analyze the ordinance gaps, because there's always gaps. We'll just be
I think there was, one of the comp plan interviews from the board meeting had mentioned that they do, was it like looking at all of our zoning or our ordinance changes, and like there was some type of analysis they could do. Maybe that's something we could consider for budget season and next year.
It was one of the extras that I think the board did not choose to pursue at this time, but yeah,
Right.
definitely something we could do next year.
But maybe that's something that we can think about, putting in the budget for next year. If we find that there's a lot of, as we start going through the comp plan and, additional zoning changes and that kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay. Number 14.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion and a second, non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.